Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
Yeah, and I think, man, unfortunately, I think I learned a little bit of that in this season. Prior to this season, we had finished first or second in our league doing it the way that we're talking about. And we just hadn't gotten over that big hump of cutting the nets down, and part of me is overcorrecting, instead of taking for granted of what got you to being in the position in the first place. Cause we just want that thing. And sometimes we overcoach it or take for granted those things that we're good at. And my mentor, I asked a couple of them, and that was the thing I feel like I've grown in this year is I've never been more clear on what it is and who we are here instead of trying to overcorrect.
Yeah.
And, just because, it's not going quite. Corey Baldwin at South Georgia State, the guy I started in coaching with, he told me about, and he's been there for a long time. He said, my first 4 years at South Georgia, I won 94 games, went to no national tournaments. My next 4 years, I won 94 games, and I went to 2 national tournaments. We are one bounce, we are one loose ball, we are one bad call away from it flipping one way or the other. It's about, can you get in that we're 2 or 3 possessions away and just keep getting better instead of, just throwing it all away. We got to do something different to try and get it. Man, it's hard enough being good at one thing. Trying to be good at a new thing is really hard, which is why I have so much respect for high school coaches. Man, you don't get to choose those players, and you have to make that system fit the dudes that you got there, because they're the ones playing. They're the ones taking those shots, regardless of what analytics or your system says. Like, that's a Jimmy and Joe out there. I got to figure out.
Sometimes it's a little Timmy. But yeah, Jim Reed is a coach in Texas that really well known. And he said something in his episode about that in November, he had March in mind. Yeah. And I think, but like, he's been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's I guess a good question. It's what Andy Bernard said in The Office. It's like this great little quote. He said, I wish somebody could tell you that you're in the good old days before you get out of them, like before you're past them, and how do you gain experience, or how do you know how to have March in mind in November without just having to do it for 30 years? And maybe part of it is, listening to a guy like Jim Reed, you and I remembering the feelings of kind of going back to that. Like, one regret is I'm glad I got out of the Grinnell business, because I think it's a good way to get you fired as a high school coach. I think, and I love it. Like, I have all their books. I've had both Arsenauts on. I think they're geniuses in the game. Like, they created something different in basketball. But if you can recruit to that and have people understand, like, listen, you are here to put on a show. We're not here. We're here to lead the nation in scoring. We may not win championships. You can do it. But that year we were 6-2, averaging 94 a game. I mean, we're literally not even talking about winning, talking about how many shots we got up. Like, that was the only goal. And it was really fun playing 15 guys, guys 1, 2, and 3 cheering for guys 13, 14, 15. We added some guys for, football came in. We lost some games. And there was just a friction that happened with culture. And I was young, completely took us out of it, and we went another direction. We went like, pack line, like we went completely opposite, and it was a disaster year. And man, like I would have rather lost sticking with what we did. But like you have to go through that year to gain the perspective to be able to say, or the experience to be able to say, in November, I've got March in mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's again something I went through similarly this year. We had a whole lot of injuries and excuses and reasons to why it didn't. So we threw a few curveballs in there for the personnel that we had, and it really helped us win a few games while we were going through those things. And then those injured players come back and we're not as good and we're struggling. And, and I again, very recency bias regret some of those things. And then just having those people close to you that you can confide in, you can trust in, that will tell you the truth, in love about, what you are and what you believe in. I think it can really help that. Styles win fights, man. If you're running the Grinnell, they have to prepare all week for that. If you're pressing for 40 minutes, you got teams putting 8 guys out there getting ready for the run and jump, like you're controlling style and you're taking them out of something that they're going to do. Teams are playing Zach Eddy. They're preparing for that all week long, probably, instead of worrying about how, their principles and their style, the Nova Southeasterns, and, that completely takes over the flow of the game. So I love the choose a style and marry with it, because again, you're dictating the pace and the style of the game, where people are having to overthink, and man, this is what you do. This is what we've done all year, and we're going to be great at it and elite at it, So I like that. I agree.
I think that flows really into style of play and kind of learning a little bit more. I feel like I know, defensively what you want to do. You made a comment earlier about that I wrote down that you might not be one of the most efficient teams offensively. And I guess my question is, like, are you basing efficiency off of how many passes, how much action, like how difficult is your offensive scheme? Because some would say analytically, Alabama's extremely efficient, but they're very simple with what they do. So if you don't mind, go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, well, again, I think we get to choose the players we want, right? So choosing to be a really good defensive team first, right? You might find a guy that's a 6'8" high skill guy, but he can't guard that trash can over there. That probably doesn't make sense for us, So, but I want that 6'5", no position, turn you over and over, rip your jersey off for another offensive rebound, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you recruit players like that, sometimes you're going to have one or two. Look, I am completely opposite of the, can't shoot, can't play crowd. And that's fine. Those dudes win a bunch of games. I'm going to have some guys out there that can't do that, but they can guard that dude that can shoot. They can get that rebound. So you're going to have some players that have a little bit of an offensive deficiency. So you're going to have less.
That makes sense.
Less ammunition to work with on that end of the floor. By no means do I think we're poor offensively. I mean, we're gonna have some. I think you recruit offense, you recruit some really talented guys on that end, but they better be able to do those other things on the other end. Are they mentally tough? Are they big and athletic? Are they competitors? Right? Like, do they fit what we say we are gonna be? On that end of the floor. And then you kind of piece it together offensively, whether they're a post or whether they're. We had the best guard in the league this year. I thought, Nate Jones, and made the most threes in the entire league, but he's also big and strong and sit down guard some. So we prioritize those things over, high skill guy on that other end. Well, I'd love to have both.
Yeah. Well, we're watching those dudes on TV, right now. But how do you find those guys? Because like at the high school level, like literally when we're talking right now, a guy named Ryan Mased with Gasso, his episode's out, and it's about this program that he's created called Recruiting Simplified. It's, I think I'm kind of answering my own question a little bit with his program, because he really does, he gives players, basically puts it on them to go out and find the right fit. See, like your school is unique because it is the right fit for somebody, but the fit and what you're looking for, it's not what, golly, what you read about the most, what you hear about the most is you better be able to handle it. You better be able to shoot it. You better, and then all of a sudden here comes a guy like you that, like, yes, that stuff's important, but I'm going to focus on another part of it. How do you find those guys? Like when you're going to a tournament, I don't know. What are some of those things that you're looking for?
Well, I don't think you recruit every kid this way, but
Okay.
I mean, you stay in it. You can recruit every kid to what your style is, but as far as finding those guys, they're just like you have coaching buddies. You have some recruiting programs that value those same things. It's easier to find those, or finding like identifying those three things I just talked about and letting that coach know, all right, who on your team, I know he's talented, I know he can shoot, I know he's athletic. Is he these three things, right? Is he tough? Is he physically? Is he athletic, right? And does he sit down and guard somebody and compete? So asking those questions, and you watch games, man. I know which guys, take that into the force serious or are talking and do that, because you can't be horrible offensively. You gotta have in playing college. I'm thinking of a guy named Greg Hobbs that played at a junior college, and he looked like he should be running the ball on Sundays. And he was our point guard, and he could not shoot, but the best on-ball defender. And I mean, I'm talking about, led the league in steals, averaged about 4 rebounds a game. He was all defensive here. He was top 3 in the league in assist to turnover ratio, but all 3 years that he was here, but he couldn't make open jump shots. I think we can work on what jumped over those 3 years. All right, we can do some catch and shoots for him that, man, you're an 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 shooter. Can you make those enough and be elite at these other things? Then we can use you, right? Like you fill the role. We definitely want that guy that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 can go get a jump shot for us. No doubt, for sure. But I think sometimes as coaches, myself included, we make the mistake to think we need all 5 guys to be that. We have 1 or 2 that, but I also would love a 6, 7 guy that just thinks every shot is his ball. He just goes punch that ball every time.
Yeah.
To the floor. So,
man, I just want to celebrate you for the way that you view the game and the opportunity that you give players, that if this was flipped and I was you sitting on that side, I'd be saying almost the exact opposite thing. Give me the shooter. I can work on the defense. I can teach them that. I could teach them. And I'm not saying that like that's wrong, but what I love about doing this is there's just learning how there's so many different ways to do it. And the passion that you have for, like, even when you were describing that player, man, I could feel it. And just for one, like, you know who you are, you know what you're looking for, the compete together and disciplined, finding those dudes that fit that. I don't know. I just think there's something special to that.
Like you said, that we're probably polar opposites, quote, quote, on style, but we would probably be, as we're talking, we'd be shocked at how similar we are in our approach. And you can be disciplined and shoot 43s a game if that's what you work on and that's what you recruit to, right? You could be disciplined and not shoot very many of them at all. We shoot them. We let them fly, man. It's just the right guys doing it. It's just, you got to identify I believe you do. You got to identify what you are as a coach and, not try and be somebody else and recruit to that for sure.
Realizing that there are just so many more ways to do it than the way that you like it. Like Kenny Hoffmeyer, I don't know if you know that name. He was kind of a legendary coach. He is. He's not dead. Legendary coach in Texas, out in California. But our girls coach at Faith is Matt Garnett, who was at Wayland Baptist for a long time. Matt played for Kenny in high school, and Kenny Hoffmeyer is known for pressing. I probably have his packet down here, and and he views the game in a way, and I can say this, like, I know him well, and I'm not. He would say, if you don't press, like, what are you doing? Why are you even doing this? Like, there's only one way to play. There's that type of conviction that is like, that I admire it, and I think there's a part of me that's like that, but I think it's also important for us to remember uh, a lot of ways to do it. And you mentioned a couple, like I think Kelvin and Nate Oates are on Samson Nate Oates are on very different ends of that spectrum. I mean, but but Houston plays fast, but there are different ways that they shoot and almost a different mentality towards that shot selection. But I don't know. I just Kenny popped in my head of like a guy that only sees one way.
Well, and I think, again, if it's for, as long as you have the perspective that it's not the only way for everybody else, I believe that we can do it. And you should be that sold out almost to your way. I mean, I don't get that. That's great. They do it and they're highly successful. I can't really fault them for doing that. I don't want to do it. That,
Yeah.
you should have that conviction about what you're doing, and you should poke holes in your plan. Why do I do it? To have more ammunition, because you are a salesman to your kids. If coaches feel that way, what do 18 to 22-year-olds or 14 to 18-year-olds? You're constant. It is not just because the coach said it. They're not that gullible. They got phones. They can figure stuff out too. To give them all right, why do we do this? Like, what is our goal? Why do we press? Why is it no middle instead of no baseline? Why is it, this is a 9 on our shot selection, but this is a 3, like there needs to be, this is why we do it. I'm not saying it's the only way, and give them like, there's these other ways. We just got to pick our way, and this is the way we're doing it. If you're coming to play for us, this is the way you're going to do it. There's coaches that work on the 4 different levels of finishes and footwork and all that. And that's great. Do that. We're playing off 2 feet every single time. And if you don't like that, I'm not handcuffing your game. Just go play somewhere else.
I have one more question before the speed round. We've talked a little bit about assistant coaches, and I would imagine, especially at a higher level like you're at, the amount of things that you have to do every day. I mean, divvying up those responsibilities and really enabling them, giving them ownership. I got to imagine that's important. So how do you work with your assistant coaches and kind of giving them different responsibilities?
Well, I was really lucky to work for a lot of good head coaches that I got to learn a whole lot from those guys over a period of time. For me, we are not big time. We are, most of the guys that I've been very lucky to work with our assistant coaches are underpaid, or we got a couple of GAs and volunteer things like that. I try to identify what is it they love about, but like, I was an assistant. I loved the recruiting stuff, man. I loved getting on the road. I loved those relationships. I loved trying to figure out, putting together a team. And, if you identify, how can we use that? And there are guys that are opposite that way. I got an assistant now. He's not necessarily as relational and all that stuff. He's good at those things and he's growing in those things, but he is elite at the basketball operations stuff and the edits on Twitter and things like that. All right. That's his big role, and he serves, and everybody's going to have their hand in a few things, academics and, skill work and things like that. I've got another guy that, man, his dream is to be a skill development guy. All right, great. Let's delegate authority. So trying to find what their skill set is. If it's a guy, you go, all right, you're in charge of player development, but they don't have an aptitude for it or a passion for it. Without passion, we won't do hard things. We got to you got to figure out what gets them excited about playing. There's a GA that's applied to be with us. He has worked at a Division I where he does all the film, show me a couple new things that you would bring to the table that we haven't had before. All right, take that and run with it. Here are a couple things I need you to do. I'll fill in the gaps to the things that you don't. Right. So you try it just like with your team. What roles are they elite at? And we've all got to carry a little bit of the other things, but giving them things that they're the most successful at turn the wheel a little bit, and then you can make up for the rest of it as a head coach, because you're going to have your hand in a bunch of them. So delegating that authority to where you don't even think about it because they're so good at it really takes it off the table, instead of going, all right, here's these 3 things that I need you to do. Well, if they're not giving clear instruction, or they're not really good at it, it's not going to get taken off your table. It's still on your table. So identifying what they're good at, I think, usually helps me make a plan for what it is their role is going to be on the staff.
200 episodes of doing this, and I'm still learning new things or realizing areas that I'm just not very good. And that question, what do your assistants love to do? I've never asked that. I've never asked them that. And I haven't really I don't think I've thought about it much. Now, at Faith, they're part-time guys, so I do try to make it really easy for them, kind of show up, plug and play, more of a deal. Like I do a lot of those things that maybe like if we were full-time and they were doing this, I don't know, maybe I delegate more. But at the same time too, as a control freak, I kind of like doing everything. But I think especially if you're at a school where, man, like when I was at McKinney with Wes Watson, we had a planning period together. We had time. Ask them what they love to do and then empower them to do that. Find out what their strengths are. Don't just have your assistants do the things that you don't want to do.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of times hiring an assistant is identifying those things that you don't want to do and trying to fire your weakness. And I stand the basketball operations stuff. I hate it. Can't stand it. Don't want to deal with it, right? Is there a guy that, he may not love it, but he is so good at it, and he finds, like Dylan always takes things, I give him a thing and he takes it to a new level that I would never even think about doing it with. And boy, does that help us. It gives me more time to do the film. And you'll run across guys that want to do the same things you're doing, and they can't do all of it, but they can sit and shadow, and then you can empower them to, okay, I'm not going to do this, scout. Let you do the personnel here. Let's see how you do with that. And they do well with that, man, you get some more of that. And then you get to be even better. You have another head coach handling those things. So yeah, it's worked good for us, and I've been really lucky to have some good assistant coaches that have gone on to be head coaches and assistant coaches in other places. So
Coach, your tree's out there just growing.
Yeah, as far as like hiring, when we hire guys and we meet as a staff, and again, can be corny, but we talk about passion, people, plan, and purpose, and what those things mean. And the first is passion. You will not do hard things if you're not passionate about it, if you don't love it. The hoops for the job mentality is because I wouldn't want to do anything else, even on hard days. So we kind of shut down through those things of what that means to be a coach.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.